What is that? Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just got off the phone with Jeremy. He was saying that it's a little warm, but he said it hasn't been
Um,
bad the last little bit.
yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, it's not warm enough. Let's see here. Today, yeah, we're only going for 78. That's buns.
Yeah, that's easy. That's like our hottest time here in Sugar City.
I
So
might, I might as well be in Sugar City with a jacket on.
yeah,
How's he
uh,
liking it?
he's liking it a lot. He's in Washington right now. You're in Washington, aren't you?
I'm actually in St. George. I'm right by the Red Cliff Temple.
Oh, okay. I wonder how far away. Anyways, he's in Washington. He says he can see the temple from where he's at, but he just got transferred to Kanab.
Oh, he's going way out to the east side.
Yeah, he's going to be maybe
He'll love
working
it.
with some polygamists out there. And
Well,
he actually wants to go out to Colorado City to
oh
work
man,
with
there's so
them.
many like documentaries right now on that stuff. Have you watched any of those?
No, but yeah, I might have to.
Hmm. There's one that's interesting. I think they're important to watch. Tangentially they're related to us. And as I travel
Yeah.
and I, have a lot of non-member friends, they always bring it up. And there's a new one out there called Fallen Prophet. It's about Sam Bateman. He's kind of
Mhm.
picked up the leadership mantle after Warren Jeffs was incarcerated, and he ended up with, I don't know, 30 wives or so, but a lot of them were underage. And this non-member couple from Las Vegas moved up there, and they're kind of content creators, but they're older, and they really were befriended by this group. But this couple realized that there was a lot of sexual exploitation going on. And so they created a sting operation with the FBI, and Sam Bateman was arrested and sent away for 50 years.
Holy smokes.
Um, but it's fairly new, super interesting. So hopefully he gets out to Hilldale and Colorado City and he can experience it himself.
I know. Well, that was one thing he looked for. He said, I want to experience a different culture. And so he was thinking like Japan or Australia or something like that. And so he's like, if I get to Colorado City, that'd be a different culture, Dad. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
sure would.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it would for sure. How long has he been out now?
7 months now.
Hmm.
So he's he's cruising.
He left just a month or two after my son. My son left in October. Yours must have left in what, November, December?
Uh oh sheesh, I can't remember. Over. I want to say he left in September. Is he going
Okay.
on 8 months then?
Yeah, or even 9,
Yeah,
September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May.
yeah. He's getting there. Whew. It's flying by though. I can't like you just revealing that right there. It seemed like it was just yesterday. I was like 7 months, 6 months. He's a quarter of the way done. But yeah,
Where did you go? Were you Paraguay?
no, I was in Alabama.
Oh, and where did Todd go?
He went to London.
Okay, okay, this is coming back. So interesting. All of your older brothers were Mexico, Ecuador, kind of that Latino experience.
Yeah, everybody speaks Spanish except for Todd and I, which I'm fine with. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I wish that I could speak another language, but I, I love my mission, so it's okay. Where did you serve again?
I was Oakland and San Francisco, but I was Vietnamese speaking, which was pretty complicated. You only speak that language, 20 or 30 minutes a day, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but I came home and I tested out of it and got 16 credits, and I've had some pretty choice experiences with the Vietnamese over the years. So
Hmm.
that was a neat part of it.
That's
And the
neat.
great thing about being stateside is when people go to the temple or other ordinances, you're close by and you can go and you can attend, and then oftentimes their kids will go to BYU and they just seem to convert maybe a little harder and
Mhm.
assimilate into the culture just a little bit quicker. So I think that's an added benefit.
Oh, it's neat. That's neat. Well, we got your parents moved into their new house. It's a cute little house.
I don't understand it, but none of us do, but that's great. Thank you.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. It was quite the experience on my end.
Yeah,
So
you had some family that bought their house, right?
yeah. Well, it's funny because whenever they come in, they're always like, "Hey, show me some land that's for sale. We might want to invest in Sugar City, Rexburg area." And we're like, "All right." And so when somebody hinted that your mom put out a filler for somebody, so I called her. I was like, "Oh, I've got a sister coming in, a sister-in-law coming in. She wants to tour your house." She's like, "Okay." She made an offer on it right then and there. I was like, "Oh, okay."
A little more serious than you thought.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they're wanting to move here within 5 years, but he's even talking if he could convince his boss to let him do more remote, he'll move here in one. So I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
I thought they were moving right in. So are they renting it for a year?
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna rent it for a year or so. But they didn't want to miss out on the house. It's a pretty good house. So
Yeah, no, it is. It's a great floor plan. I still wonder what my parents are thinking. They're like, downsize. Well, what are you downsizing for? Now nobody's gonna come stay with you. Now you got this tiny little house.
maybe that was the point. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, stop coming to see us.
Yeah, you could stay in their RV if they still have it.
Oh, that big real green rolling turd. I actually, my dad found that in Kanab. He's like, I need you to go to Kanab and pick this up. Like, oh
That's
man.
that's funny.
So
He's trying to sell it to me, and I'm like, I'm not interested. I was like, you'd have to sell it to me for cheap, cheap, cheap. He's like,
yes.
yeah, yeah, I will. $10,000. I was like, that's not cheap.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he gets these wild hairs. I think we all do. I'm like, are you sure,
Yeah,
Dad?
that's funny. Well, good. Well, thanks for meeting with me. I don't want to take too much of your time because I know it's important for you.
Sure, no
Um,
worries.
so let me give you a quick overview of this. I mentioned it in the email, but I'm really looking for the qualities and traits and skills that BYU Idaho needs to have. And so I'm looking at people that I consider successful and that kind of have a pulse on what's going on to kind of let me know like what we're lacking at BYU Idaho, and maybe not even that framework. It's more of like what would be the ideal candidate and why and stuff like that. And so my approach is going to be going in through like the finding stage, the interview stage, the trial stage, like when they're first there, and then the long term stage of like promotion and stuff like that. And so I just got 10 questions for you that we'll just run through. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, just to start off, so you can take this however or where you want to, but I thought if you thought about the best employees or coworkers that you've ever had, and you answered the questions with them in mind, that's kind of what I was looking for. But if it kind of goes off into some advice and those things, I'm happy to get those too. So,
Okay.
all right. When you think about the best people your company has hired, how were they first discovered and noticed?
Yeah. So just a little bit of a disclaimer on me. We've probably got, at our peak, maybe upwards of 1,000 employees. But I'm not I'm not generally hiring at that level. We find a company, we buy a company, we find a CEO to run the company, and I work with him or her, and they do most of the hiring. But I have spent a lot of time over the years. I've been an operator, and so there's my disclaimer.
Okay.
So this was more of a one-off, but we have a large school in Texas. It's probably one of the largest in the nation. We had 14,000 graduates in the last 12 months, and we have about that school is probably pushing 300 employees. Um, and we found our CEO quite by happenstance on Indeed. So Indeed's never the answer, but sometimes, I guess my point is sometimes better to get lucky than to be good. And anyways, Jake Mouseaware had worked for the Schwarzenegger administration back when Arnold was in office, and he ran California private schools that were owned by the state. And then when that administration ended, he went and worked for the state of California, um, and he did the same thing in Sacramento. So sometimes you just get lucky, but um, I think that our path to good people has most consistently come through word of mouth, or not word of mouth, but through referrals from people that we know. We network our net we work our network pretty relentlessly to find the talent pool. And the great thing about that is you got people that'll tell you, the truth about people, and they can vouch for their potential and their value creation. So first and foremost, we work our network.
Okay. So network's a big part of it.
Yep.
Real quick, James Mouser, is that what you said he was?
Yeah.
Would he be a good guy to interview too?
Oh, he'd be phenomenal.
Okay. I might get you to hook me up with him. That'd be great.
Yeah, you could interview all of our CEOs if you wanted, if that'd be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. That'd be great. Okay. Well, when you're sorting through applications, what makes one person rise to the top before the interview stage? Is there anything that makes them pop out?
Well,
Like James, for example.
two things I'm always looking for. Number one is potential. What is their potential? And if you can see through their either a cover letter or through if they've exhibited it on a resume, their potential is number one. Number two is value creation. What has their value creation been over time? And a lot of people are trying to create, value creation through action verbs on a resume. You can see through that pretty quick. But if they're able to really identify value creation on a resume, they'll rise to the surface every time.
Okay. So potential and value creation. How do you gauge potential?
Yeah, that's the question. That is the question. I don't know if ever told you. I went back to school in my late 40s.
Uh-huh.
I did a 3-year program at Harvard, which was awesome. And these discussions were all day, every day. Um, I'm just looking through a deck I have. There's all kinds of matrix, but elements, of potential really kind of come down to like 4 key attributes: determination, curiosity, insight, and engagement.
Okay.
And so if you can identify that, and that's hard, right? How do you determine determination or insight on a cover letter or on a resume? Well, you can. Some people are writing a resume or constructing a resume in such a way as that they're trying to project themselves, their best version of themselves, right,
Yeah.
onto a hiring manager. But I think a more savvy, you know, individual is going to put in there some of their key insights, and how those insights turned into, well, curiosity would lead to the insight, and that would lead into determination. And finally, at the end, you're going to have this engagement. And you can see that in the construct of a resume for someone that's really, really intuitive. And those four things are going to point to potential more than achieved 200% sales success by expertly employing sales techniques over a 2-year period, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people are touting in their resume some of their accomplishments, but if you can get behind that, somebody, might put on a resume that I was working in supply chain, but realized after being there, I had a real curiosity about personnel development,
Yeah.
which led to conversations with HR, and I then determined that my passion was in personnel development, and now I'm fully engaged as a trainer of supply chain professionals. So there's this path that they're articulating in their resume or their cover letter that can kind of show you that path that leads to potential. And it's always curiosity, insight, engagement, determination. It's those 4 steps.
I love that. I love that. I have to use that. Okay. Well, as we get into the interview stage of these candidates, what qualities or skills make someone stand out during the initial hiring process beyond their resumes and formal qualifications?
Yeah, it's a path. If they can walk you down a path, right? They can articulate a path that they've been on, kind of this self-discovery path. Self-discovery comes through education, it comes through experience, it comes through life's experience. But you can see the inquisitive, insightful nature of somebody that's just a learner, somebody that's able to gather their experience that's happening around them, take the best of that experience, and then like unleash it upon your company. So it's always about the path.
Oh, awesome. And if they can portray that in a coherent way, I'd imagine.
And very few can. Like they feel
Yeah.
like they're there to like give you this regurgitation of all of their top experiences in their life. It's important. You want to see that somebody, I mean, I don't want to hire a deadbeat, but I think the more advanced people are showing you their path that they've been on.
Yeah, I like that. Well, if you had 2 people, multiple qualified candidates, what's the most common reason someone gets hired when there are multiple qualified candidates?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question, and that's a tough one. I mean, we go back and forth. We'll come down to 3 or 4 candidates, and we will sit and powwow and try to gather everybody's insight. It's important, I think, to have some tools as you're going through it. We use, I don't know if I can share my screen, but one thing that really helps us. Can I share a screen?
I think so.
There we go.
Yeah. It's not asking me for permission, so I'm sure you can.
Right here. Are you able to see that screen?
Yeah, it's pretty blurry, but here, let me make it bigger. There we go. Yeah.
So this is kind of our go-to when we're hiring kind of higher end jobs, the competencies and the potential hallmarks correlations. And so we identify the job, the opportunity to create value. And let's just say, let's say it's top level management. They'll have 35 direct reports, and their job is primarily around, let's say like, maybe marketing and sales. And so as you go down that left side, that column there, then we're trying to identify first, I think hiring managers do a poor job of actually identifying what they're looking for. We get into so many interviews that there's very little preparation. We step in and we try to evaluate somebody based on a gut feeling. Well, there are tools that can actually do so much more than that. Gut feeling is important. But, if I'm hiring a sales manager, then, I'm going to drop down probably more towards, highlighted item number 3, collaboration and influence. I want someone that can so you see there again, there's the engagement, there's the determination, the curiosity. That's going to be important. Team leadership is going to be important, and then market understanding is going to be important. So as I'm going through that interview, I'm really going to focus on those three highlighted areas, and then you go across the top there, and this series of evolution. One is going to be low. If I'm hiring someone and I'm basing my interview on whether or not they can complete an assignment, I sure better be hiring the kid that's going to be mowing my lawn, right? Because that's the only attribute. Can he complete that assignment? It's pretty low level.
Yeah.
But at the higher end, at a 7, can this person transform my business model? Now that's huge, right? If I could answer that question about any candidate, I'm probably going to hire them. If they can complete that objective. And so, you get this series of evolution, this 7-step series here, and we're trying to get our arms around, where does this candidate land in these 3 subcategories? Are they more along the 7s or more along the 1s? And then we can at least come out with some type of, scientific or at least quantitative results-based interview that we can compare. And if there are 3 or 4 of us in an interview and we all determine that candidate A, you could actually rank them on everything. You could aggregate the score, and if everybody ranked candidate A, up highly, candidate B lowly in a low manner, you've at least got some scientific evidence or at least an empirical study that you can come back with and say, yeah, we all agree that he ranked high on a lot of these categories. And that's important to us. I love to get someone else's perspective because we go into interviews with biases, right?
Yeah.
Like even the way someone dresses, their mannerisms, and if I'm good, which I'm generally not, I do my best to remove my biases and just be objective.
Sorry, my mom's calling. Call her back later.
Worries.
This is actually pretty cool. Would you be willing to share this PDF with me?
Yeah, it's a whole study. It was we did this during residency number 3, but this was a visiting instructor from Stanford. It's one of my favorite. Talent's hard to find, potentials to focus, mastering development, and mastering succession planning. So I'll send you the whole thing.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, this is great stuff. This will be very helpful when we start looking at employability of BYU Idaho students. This is great. Let me see if you already answered this one. Oh, what are some warning signs or gaps that make it you hesitate to hire somebody? Are there any red flags that are like, yeah, whenever anybody does this or?
Yeah. So I've got a couple of quick assessment questions. I interview, it kind of comes and goes, but there's probably been hundreds of young entrepreneurs, and as part of one of their assignments in a college somewhere in the nation, they have to interview an entrepreneur, or they've seen our private equity path and they want to get into private equity, and so they interview us. There's been a lot, and they start exploring how to get into the path, and this kind of leads into an interview, because I'll do the same thing in an interview. But one of the first questions I'll ask somebody is, what is something that you are exceptionally good at, like better than your peers? And too often the college graduates, and especially at BYU Idaho, they'll say, well, I'm graduating in finance. And my response to that, well, that wasn't my question. Like, I graduated in finance, but I didn't know anything about finance when I graduated. I had no super skill. I could do discounted cash flows. I could do valuations. I could do time value of money. I could do basic accounting. I got some of this, but I was no better than him. In fact, I was probably worse. And so then I repeat the question, what are you phenomenal at? What's your super skill? And they fail to answer that question. And so everybody needs to be self-aware enough that they know what they're inherently good at and what their deficiencies are. And I would tell people, I turn it and say, look, at an early age, I probably saw opportunity because I was inquisitive. I had this inquisitive nature that led me to ask insightful questions. I probably see opportunity better than most people. And then I turn the question back over to him. What do you do well? And if you can't answer that question, I would plead with you to go spend the next couple of months determining what you are really good at. If you can't start there, how do you bring any value to an organization? So kind of a roundabout way of answering that question, but that's generally where I start.
Okay. Well, I love that because what'd you call it? A
Superpower or
superpower?
secret sauce.
Okay, I like that too. It might have to be one of my chapters, all right. Um, are there any skills or characteristics that separate employees who simply perform their job from those who just become strong candidates for promotion?
Yeah. Yeah. It's value creation. It's value creation. Um, and people, I think they underestimate how important that is to us. We're hiring on potential, but that potential has to lead to one thing, and that potential has to lead to value creation. Value creation isn't always in EBITDA or profitability. Value creation can be in people development. Valuation can be in safety standards. Valuation can be in so many things, but valuation is going to set them apart.
Awesome. After somebody is hired, what qualities and behaviors help them become a strong, long-term fit for your workforce?
Yeah. Value creation every single time. Do they
Okay.
continue to create value? Um, even at the expense of, I can handle, in fact, I often encourage healthy debate, healthy argument, because I think we flesh out the more important details. I was a counselor to a bishop once, um, and then I was called as bishop, and I was visiting with him, and he asked me about my counselors, and I told him, he goes, good. He goes, because Benson, I've got one who's just a yes man. He's such a pushover. If I say anything, he always says, yes, Bishop, yes, Bishop. On the one hand, I'm thinking, oh, that sounds kind of nice. But I think the point is that, like in all areas of life, we've got to offer our value, even if
Yeah.
that value contradicts and it maybe creates a bit of a rub. Um, if we put our value out there, it's going to be the tide that raises all boats, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's value creation.
Okay. Well, I like that. All right. Well, let's go to long-term stage, like the promotional stage.
Yeah.
What qualities, behaviors, or skill gaps prevent people from being promoted, even when they are technically good at their job?
Yeah. People that come to you and say, hey, I've been here for a year. Can we talk about a promotion? We try to be insightful enough at the top that we recognize the value creation of our employees before they come and ask for a promotion. We don't always get it right because sometimes we're just not as engaged as we should be. But people that are doing it based on just a standard thing that happens every anniversary, which I am like vehemently opposed to. I believe highly in meritocracy, and I would rather have people come and say, hey, look, I feel like you guys might have overlooked this, but look at this value creation over time. Right. And
Okay.
there are times where we said, oh my gosh, yeah, we have. You are due, ripe, and overdue for a promotion. We try to be on top of that, like who are our top performers. One thing, yeah, I've got it right here. So our CEOs have these KPIs. It's on a collaborative worksheet that they have to, I'll share this with you, that they have to report every Thursday. Thursday stats are what we call them. And one of those stats is, here, you should be able to see it, is who's your rising star? And we have a large agricultural company in Florida. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
And right here at the bottom, one of the things that CEO has to identify is the rising star. So this week it was Victoria, Victoria and Joy, Victoria and Steve, Steve and Joy, Griffin, Joy, Joy, Victor, Steve, Victoria, which is interesting. There's a lot of different people from any given week, but it allows us to focus on the individual and the merit of their work. We're identifying that person. And then when we're at our best, we will go to that person completely, I know, that person, it's going to be out of the blue. It's not going to be at an anniversary. We're going to say, Joy, your work has just been phenomenal. Your value creation's been phenomenal. You have led to this organization growing and expanding in whatever her capacity is. And it is time to offer a pay raise or a promotion. So meritocracy, we try to watch people, we try to evaluate our rising stars.
That's awesome. I love that. And in fact, you answered the follow-up question with that about how do and yours is value creation affect hiring and promotion decisions, and that's perfect. All right, so two more questions for you, Ben, and then I'll let you go. When you think about the people who are most successful in your organization or industry, what qualities, characteristics, or skills do they consistently demonstrate?
Yeah, that's a good one. There's a level of intelligence that is simply higher than their contemporaries. They're just smarter people. And I'm going to digress here for a second. As I've gotten older, I've realized the importance of kids that go to private schools. The sharpest people, I've tried to record this and so I've got these notes, and the sharpest people in the world, in my opinion, Spencer, went to private school. Crazy as it sounds, they're sharp, they've got great interpersonal skills, they're inquisitive, they're empathetic by nature, they're just a higher caliber of people. And I'm sitting here looking at all these people and their children. I'm like, what is the common denominator? And I was hoping it would come back to they're all LDS. Well, that wasn't what happened. So many of them went to private schools. I'm like, oh my lands. So my sugar saving school, I shouldn't say it failed me because I put zero effort into it. But anyways, there's this like level of intellectual ability that separates people apart. And then kind of an inquisitive nature. Some people show up to work, other people show up to learn, to improve their work and create value. And there is just such a difference. Hey, kiddo.
Hi.
You feeling better?
No.
Okay, well, don't cough on me then.
Hi.
How many do you
Speaking
still
of-
got at home?
I've got 3 at home still.
It goes by fast.
They do. She's at home because she was running a fever pretty high this morning. So, yeah, you can have a Sprite.
So, that's the big thing to me. There's this intelligent component, and people who understand their superpower, they exploit it upon the organization and they create value. And there are people, it's interesting. There are so many studies that show you have your high performers, and your high performers will perform at a high level, irregardless of the compensation that they're offered.
Yeah.
In other words, if I take an A-grade employee and I pay him $37,000 a year, because of the nature of who they are, they're going to give you all-star work. Whether you pay them $37,000 or $400,000, they're going to give you all-star work. And that just kind of speaks to their ability to read the room, understand their superpowers. They've got this higher level of intelligence and they can exploit it. And those are the attributes that set your star performers apart from people who just want to show up to work.
That's so awesome. And I'll get to the last question in a second. It's interesting because some of this stuff you can't teach. It's like, all right, teach this and take a test on this. It's like, all right, you got it down. Like some of this stuff is like an emotional intelligence thing that you have to develop for yourself. So it'll be interesting applying that to the students here at BYU Idaho.
And I've often thought when I think of higher education, I've got a lot of education, and so I've thought about my journey over the years, and I think the aim of higher education needs to be that we create this environment where an individual can go through this self-exploration journey. And yes, there is content they need to learn if they're going to become a doctor. There's content they need to learn if they're going to become a civil engineer. There's content they need to learn if they're going into business, music. There is the content component. But I think the bigger component is, as we matriculate along, there's this maturity that takes place. And part of that component is time. And here in Southern Utah, they have this program called the Success Program, where kids can be concurrently enrolled in Utah Tech and in high school, and they graduate with their master's, or not their master's, their associate's degree. Some kids are almost graduating with a bachelor's. And I'm always poo-pooing that idea and saying, well, why are we trying to shorten the duration of college? It is not overly expensive, number one. But two, there's this time component where, to your point, they're learning their best selves over time. Part of that's a mission, part of that's college. But if we shorten it, I mean, we all have 40 to 45 years to work. Why do we need 48? Like, let's let these kids go through this experience that is unique at that time in their lives. So I agree with you. It's a component in the higher education system, but it does take time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because if you rush through it, then because there's life lessons, and I tell my students this all the time. College is not just about classes and coming to classes and taking tests. It's also about roommates. It's also about extracurricular stuff and the whole college experience. And I can tell you right now, some of my biggest networks, I didn't even get in the classroom. I got it from associations outside of the classroom that are there. So
Right.
awesome. All right, Benson, last question. If you were to advise your 17-year-old self who wants to be hired, succeed, and eventually be promoted, what would you tell yourself to develop first and why?
Yeah. That natural curiosity for the things you love. Go and exploit that, understand it, tear it apart, reconstruct it, and let that curiosity lead into a development of skills around what it is you're like. For me, I was born to go into business and employ people and, take these small businesses and try to make them better. I was born for that. And I think I knew at a fairly early age, and I had a curiosity for it. But these young people need to develop that curiosity. And so then they need to have a platform to where they can practice, and they need to be involved, and they need to find a way, a cohort, a community, a caring business owner that'll let them get out there and like unclip their wings and let them get their hands around these things. Because once they play with it, once they test it, once they're involved in it, right, it'll lead to more questions, and they get on this exploratory path. And by the time they're 23 or 24 and primed and ready to go out into the job market, there are so many of these kids that end up at Goldman Sachs, they end up at McKinsey, because they were such curious adolescents. And that curiosity coupled with some superior intellect led to fantastic employees that ends up at Goldman Sachs and, McKinsey and other places. So let that curiosity go. We got to foster that as parents. Like, how do we encourage that? So I think we have, it's two responsibilities, the individual and those that have stewardship for that individual.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Curiosity, that's huge. I wish I would have been more curious. I just didn't have confidence until later. And it's like, oh man, because that's really, if I have that curiosity that drives me, I think I would have been able to find it faster. So, because my curiosity is kids and learning. And so that's why I love what I do. So,
well, I don't know about that confidence thing, student body president a couple times and, look at everything that you've accomplished. And, I take a look at actually the wider cohort of kids out of Sugar City. And I think if somebody were to go and do a study on it, I think that despite the fact that we don't have private school there, the quality of kids that came out of Sugar City and the accomplishment, I think, is probably unrivaled.
that would be an interesting study. Yeah, because you look at Randy Garn,
Clark Miyazaki.
Yeah, Clark Miyazaki. You had a number of them that are working for the Pentagon, like the Brown. Oh, what's his name? Kimball Brown and
Brady Howell.
Brady Howell. Yep. So
those are
interesting.
just the ones that are just public, but the people that maybe aren't quite as public that are just accomplished in law and health and business and education, charitable works. I think we're unrivaled.
I think you're right. Maybe that'll be my next sabbatical.
Yeah. So how long's your sabbatical? Is it all semester long?
All semester long. Yep. So I'm going to be doing these interviews throughout the whole semester and collecting all of them and go from there. So,
If you want any of my people, we've got 5 or 6 good CEOs. We sold a lot of stuff during COVID, but happy to put you in touch with them.
I would love that. If I reached out to you and especially if they are into the hiring part of things, I would be very interested to talk to them. Like this James Mouser, that would be great. If you got me in contact with any or all of them, or just got me their contact information where I could reach out, I would love that.
Okay, I'll put it all together.
Okay.
Kingston White, he's married to Christy Jepson. He's worked for me for about 11 years.
Okay.
Put you in touch with him. Jake Mouseaware will be a good one. Put you in touch. My son-in-law runs our agricultural company in Florida, and he's a sharp one. I'll put you in touch with Dason. We'll start there.
Okay. That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Well, Benson, you're awesome. I look up to you a lot. I appreciate it. I apologize for peeing on your sweater that one day.
It made me the man I am today.
I guess so. But you're awesome. Well, when I come down, I'd love to visit with you a little bit more. I'll for sure come back down and get Jeremy off his mission, but there's a couple other people I want to interview in St. George, and so if I come down, I may do a follow-up with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, you've got a place to stay. And further, if I think you ought to think about collaboration with Utah Tech. Utah Tech is really up and coming. Christina and I are mentors to the football team. We give them a life lesson every Wednesday from 3:15 to 4:15. Depending on the time of the year, you can get in front of them. The president of the university is just 2 doors down from me, and he's my pre-scorum specialist. And they are looking to collaborate. So I've got my cousin Cody. Have you met Cody? He teaches biology, or I think he teaches biology.
What's his last name?
Smith, Cody Smith.
Oh, yeah. Yep, he came and lived with your parents for a little bit while I was trying to figure stuff out. Yeah.
So Cody is collaborating with Utah Tech right now. They're trying to find like mutually beneficial bioscience opportunities for both universities. If you wanted to do some kind of study or some kind of involvement or collaboration with Utah Tech, let me know. I'll put you in touch with the man.
Okay. Oh, that'd be awesome. All right. Hush. Sorry, my dog just decided to be a doorbell.
Is that Bootsy? Is that Bootsy I hear?
Yeah, it's Tucker. That's his name. So,
do you remember Bootsy?
Was that your dog?
No, that was the Blacks dog, Kent and Kyle Mark's dog. And Bootsy would run around the street like that, and Scott Ferguson would be so upset. He'd get on his little what do you call that thing? Moped. He'd get on his little moped. Yeah. He was trying to drive. He was turning circles and up and down. He was trying to run over Bootsy. You know how Scott had that like maverick mentality. Anyways, Bootsy and Scott, they never got along.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, we had Cuddles, and he was just chained up to the house out there, and crazy. I remember was it Rerun?
Yeah, Rerun. Yeah. That was a good dog right there. Weimarina.
Yeah. Anyways. Well, Benson, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. You're awesome.
Hey, thanks for letting me do it.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.